I'm Van.
I'm Sorry.
That's Booby.
And Jelpy and Ghosty.
One of my favorite Homo sapiens on the planet Earth had a birthday recently. Shout out to the Big Z.
Sonia! Happy birthday.
You know what's funny? I get these messages from people sometimes. I guess I'm not one of your favorites. You know what I say? It's true. You're not. If everybody was everybody's favorites, there would be no favorites.
Unless you're Leah.
Hey, listen, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a human being. And human beings have friends. You know what that means? Friends are people that you like more than other people on the planet. I'm allowed to have that. Just because I have a reaction channel doesn't mean I can't have friends. Anyway, shout out to the big...
You don't have to explain yourself to anybody.
No, I'm not explaining myself. I'm explaining how the world works.
Let that be a lesson to you.
Let that be a lesson to you. And also, one of my other favorite people in the world called me the most frustrating individual on the planet. And another one of my favorite people in the world, Peter, said I'm hard to love. So, if you want to find out why, check out Middle America with Vin and Sorry, where you too, dear listener, can be frustrated and full of hate for your boy. Check it out.
Plenty to go around for the right and for the left.
Yep, plenty to go around. It's so funny. One guy was like, "You left-wing, disgusting." Okay. This is for Zonia. It's her birthday.
Mm-hmm.
The name of the song is "Primitive Man" by the band Commerce. No, Primitive Man is the band, I believe, and the name of the song is Commerce.
Yep.
On their 2017 record, Caustic.
It's about capitalism.
Caustic. You think it's about capitalism? I think you're probably right.
It's Sonia, I'm assuming.
You're right. Zonia is one of these rich Silicon Valley social. I think she's an anarcho socialist. I think.
Oh.
She's something. She's not
smart,
like that mean guy on the Bernie Sanders campaign who wants to send people to the gulags. She's nice. She's a nice anarcho socialist. All right.
Hope you're feeling better.
I'm probably wrong. I'm probably going to get a message from like 9 people. She is not an anarcho-socialist. She's an anarcho-acro-liberal, socio-democratic person, you idiot. It's so simple.
It's so simple. And go.
I think this is sludge. Sludge.
Sounds like it.
We know our genres.
Yep. Yes. With the best reaction channel. It's so good too.
Turn down the volume. Relapse Records, bitches. Alright, right now. Quick. Love it or hated it?
I would never listen to it again because to me it was such a downer. Did you love it?
So you hated it. Just tell the truth.
I don't have a problem telling the truth. I'm just saying I don't necessarily think it was a bad song. I think that it captured what it was supposed to capture, but I wouldn't listen to it again. You probably loved it.
Zonia said you're gonna hate it.
Hate it?
She said, Sorry's gonna hate this song.
No, I don't hate it. I don't like how it's heavy, man. I was gonna joke and be like, makes me want to go out and get a job.
You do have a job.
Outside of the house.
Well, this is very, very interesting coming off the heels of Mr. Jurek's meltdown from the Project Veritas thing. If you want to see my take on it, go to
Oh my gosh.
Go to Middle America.
It's worth the watch.
Actually, I'm gonna put the link on in this thingy because
I watched it myself.
It's interesting stuff. So here's the thing. This is obviously, you're right. It's talking about capitalism and wage slavery, and that line there was pretty crazy at the end when it talked about the inevitability of your cold death and your heart being ripped from your chest, placed into the cavity of another worker bee. Your essence is dead, but slavery is forever. And so that's sort of the outlook that engenders sort of this animus between, you know, the worker versus the bourgeoisie, as it were, and that hopelessness and
that word always makes me feel like laughing.
Bourgeoisie.
Yeah.
That hopelessness, you know, that people have, and the. I remember being at a job where this is right before I took a more how would you say, exotic job, but I remember sitting there, and it wasn't very hard work. It was actually pretty easy work. You know, it's just in an office. And I remember I had my hand on the keyboard, and I was just like, I was in a pretty unique situation. So, like, when the idea floated around for this other opportunity, you could call it, I remember initially being like, no way. I mean, that's crazy. It's very dangerous, blah, blah, blah. But I remember there was one specific moment, man, where I was on my keyboard and I was just like, I cannot do another second of this. Yeah. And I remember putting my hand on the keyboard like this.
Oh, really?
I wouldn't let my finger touch the keyboard.
Really?
Yeah, because it was I just couldn't. So finally I broke down and I called the guy and I said,
I'm in.
Yeah, but I had to fly out somewhere and do a lot of, you know, a whole battery of, you know, whatever, and then off I went to, you know, whatever. But that wasn't more. It wasn't more. I don't know if it was wage. I mean, I guess it was wage slavery because at some level, it's like if you want to do something different, but you can't because you have a family to support and you live in a society where, you know. It's not just complete capitalism because, you know, all around the world you have to work. I mean, it's not like if you adopt a sort of socialist or democratic socialist perspective or, you know, government that you don't work. You still have to work.
Right.
You know, it's just... So, but I just remember that. But it wasn't about... So, anyway... So I took the other... You know, I did the other thing for a while and, you know, I stopped doing the other thing about 2 years now. After,
I mean, we've been married for almost 2 years. Well, not technically. We've been married for over 2 years.
Yeah. And I know you always ask me, like, oh, do you want to go back and da-da-da-da. And I don't know if you believe me or not, but I don't. Because now I feel like what I'm doing is significant. You see what I'm saying? And so, and that what we have is pretty cool, obviously. And you know.
So am I one of your favorite people?
You're my favorite person of all time.
More than Muhammad? I shouldn't have asked this on camera.
Yes. I love
that
you
was
more.
so hard for you.
I love you more than Muhammad.
Muhammad's dead.
Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Oh my god.
So anyway, well, it was actually, so that was actually a double. I'll tell you about in probably 5 years. But,
glad to know you intend on being around in 5 years.
yeah, I mean, you know. But anyway, here's my point. My point is like the banality of life in a world where you have to work in the gutter in a job that you hate and live paycheck to paycheck and things of that nature. At the time, I wasn't paycheck to paycheck. Mm-hmm. It was just, I was making, I don't know, millions of dollars a year for a financial institution. I certainly wasn't making millions of dollars a year. I was getting less than 1% of 1% of 1% of the revenue I was generating for this particular company. They loved me. They actually tried to recruit me, and I was like, it's more of the same. The other people that were trying to recruit me was like, very excited. You might die. Great.
Excellent.
So you know, I don't think I understand completely what it's like to completely be in a job and have no, like, there was one time, remember one time I was working at Walmart, you know, just, you know, because I kept going back and forth between, whoa, like I'm overstimulated now, like, so when I was doing the other thing, it was like way too much excitement, and I was like, yo, I told my man, I'm like, yo, man, like, I gotta get off this plane, bro, like, I gotta get off this train. He's like, oh, you'll be back. I was like, nah, I'm done. I'm gonna work at Walmart. He's like, oh, you're gonna work at Walmart. It's one of those things in those movies, you know, where the guy's like, this is the last time.
Yeah.
and I remember, like, I didn't take the job very seriously because I knew that, you know, if it didn't work out, then I would.
I remember that.
But I saw people who, like, that was because they pay well.
That was their one shot because
that was their
they didn't
only
go to
shot.
college.
The only way to feed
town.
their family, small town. They were never going to get out of Lewiston, Maine.
Nope.
And like, this is all they had.
Yep.
And I remember there was this one guy.
And honestly, I'm going to throw this out there. The school systems, they friggin' suck.
Here?
The public school systems here suck.
That's hilarious to me.
Why?
I went to Lewiston High School for half a year, and if you think the school systems suck here, it's like literal paradise compared to the school systems in the Bronx where
That's
I came up.
awful.
Like, if you think...
That is awful.
I thought that this place was like the most advanced place of all time. I used to try to call my older brother and say, yo, Junior, yo. It's unbelievable. I mean, they hand out iPads and shit to kids in this.
They didn't back when we were in school.
No, but I mean, the budgets are pretty much similar.
But even still, you know...
That's hilarious to me that you think that the school system suck here, but that's all part of it, right? It's like you have people in poverty and you make sure that their education level stays at a certain level so that they cannot attain to those, you know.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's not only like academically they can't attain to it, but if you keep them like subpar in their education, then they feel... Some people are inclined to feel subpar, and if you feel less than, you're basically condemning yourself to less than opportunities because you're not willing to step out there and take that risk.
That's why this whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps, it's such bullshit. You know, it's like Dr. King said, it's like you're talking about pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and you took our boots.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You honestly believe that, and look, I'm not one of these people that resents rich people, but do you honestly believe that you came up in your nice little, 1%?
Well, they do believe it.
But even people here believe it. Like I said, you believe that they had a bad school system, and the school system that we came from, like, forget it.
Yeah.
You guys had it made. But even here, you're saying it's bad compared to what we had, man. We had outdated books of whole chapters were torn out of them. Like,
I hear what you're saying, but if you took those same books and you gave it to a homeschool parent, they could have gotten better education for their kids than the public school system was doing. The public school system was trash.
That's not the point. The point is that there was a vast difference.
No, I totally get that.
The school here and the school here, and it shocks me to say that to hear that you think that the schools here were bad. They were
I can't even imagine seeing those other ones.
So the point, like, here's my perspective on the whole capitalist, the the whole battle. Like, rich people and powerful people know how to repeat process and remain in power. Mm-hmm. And they also know that to maintain the dynamic that they have to crush somebody. In order for me to be powerful, somebody has to be dominated.
Yeah.
And so you have some people who are like soft dominators, and you have other, like, I'd say a guy like Bernie Sanders is like a soft dominator. Like, say what you want, but the guy's still a millionaire. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The Fox News did something one time where he like did like 5 private jet thingies in like 2 months or something like that. Like, he's not flying Delta. Mm-hmm. And so, but now he's one of these people with a conscience. Like, shit, we should find a way to, whatever. And then you got a guy like Trump who represents, hey, I'm rich, I'm powerful, my kids are rich and powerful, I'm going to keep them rich and powerful, I'm going to keep other people under the boot, and that's that. Mm-hmm. If you want to do better, then do better. Hey, I improved a small $1 million loan from my dad. Mm-hmm. You pull yourself up. So, like, they're two different sides of the same coin.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with... You might think this has nothing to do with it, but I don't have a problem with Bernie taking private flights, because at his age, man, he's got to be tired. And anytime he goes on any flight, even if he flies like in a higher class spot, people are going to want to friggin' talk his head off.
Oh, I'm not mad at him for that. I'm just saying.
Just practically speaking,
I'm just saying he's presenting himself as a common man, and he is not.
But he's not. Yeah,
he's not the common man.
Right, because he's not a common man.
So my point is that, when you talk about class warfare, if you come up in a capitalist milieu, it's going to happen, and so it's one of those things where, so like I said, like, I don't want to say like I can relate to this song per se, because I've never really, my first job was Burger King, but to be honest with you, it was my first job. And it was the first time I had a job, and me and my girl were at the time, and we were young. It was our first place together. Mm-hmm. So even though Burger King wasn't a very glamorous job, I didn't feel like this. Mm-hmm. I remember we were getting $7.25, and Di called me into her office, and she's like, "How would you like $7.50?" I'm like, "What? $7.50? I can't believe this."
Oh my word.
And it was basically to do, they called it like be the something manager. And really what that was you wake up at 4 a.m. and you stock the fridge for 2 hours in winter in Maine. And the fridge was colder than outside. Mm-hmm. In the dead of winter at 4 o'clock in the morning in Maine. And you're just moving boxes, stacking that fridge to all the meat and all that. Then you had to change all the, like, I was working extremely hard for that extra 25 cents, which immediately got, taken. Mm-hmm. So, but I thought it was the bee's knees, Did
you do good at that job? Would you go fast and get it accomplished?
Well, you had no choice but to go fast because it was freezing. So the only way you could keep warm was to go fast. Oh. I think, like, if I was in Florida or something like that, I would have probably been tempted to go lazy. But, kind of even when I was in Walmart, I worked harder than everybody because I was not good at learning how to stack my pallet. But then there's this guy who worked ridiculous hours. And I don't know if you've ever been in there, because I was in a distribution center. So it wasn't like the store where you walk. I mean, it was like,
it was a warehouse.
And our particular side was the meat and produce side, and it was extremely physical labor. Mm-hmm. Like, you're just moving weight.
Yeah.
For
moving weight, you moved your own weight.
Yeah,
so much.
You literally moved. I forgot. Like, he was ridiculous.
Do you still have that picture of how small you were?
Yeah. I'll find it and put it up there. But.
Yeah, if we have it, it'll be right here.
But it was all lighthearted for me because I knew any moment that I wanted out, or if I got fired or something, like, I'd be fine.
Yeah, I was kind of stressed out. You ended up getting fired over some dumb thing, like moving. He had parked in like a handicap parking spot or something like that, or
no.
You parked in some weird spot, and then they told you had to move your car, and you went out and moved your car,
right.
And then because you moved it from one spot to the other when you were on the clock, that got you fired because it was considered like stealing from the company or something like that.
I just think that they're just
looking for a reason.
Well, I just think they could tell that I didn't really take anything that seriously. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And, you know, and I was not a very efficient worker. But it wasn't because I wasn't working hard. It was just because I wasn't very good at stacking the thing.
Yeah.
So I'd have like half my trip done, and then everything would just collapse. And then you have to pick everything up, and then the
must have crushed so many boxes.
Then the fast guys would come and they try to help you because like you don't want to just drive by somebody that's got,
I know.
You literally have like 200 items on the ground. Like they feel bad, so now you slow them down and all that.
And they get paid. Actually, the faster that they work, they get an extra percentage onto their paycheck. So you can work your hourly wage, but you can also make more on top of that if you're fast the whole time. So if you drive by somebody who dumped their pallet, well, it's going to help your paycheck.
Right. And then, the other side, though, is like if you were lower than a certain threshold, then you're out. Mm-hmm. So, like, there's this thing about Amazon where, like, I guess they were, like, had these click buttons, like, they'd have a little shock if you were too low or something like that. I'm sure it was hyperbolized, but, you know, people are like, oh my God, Amazon, because Amazon...
Yeah, it's probably like a vibration.
Exactly.
You know
I'm sure it was like a beep,
slow.
like, hey, you're 2 minutes under, or whatever.
They're like, it's a sharper.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a taser.
Exactly. So if my point is, if I was in a job like that and I had no other options, then I would feel crushed under the boot of capitalism. There was this guy that would work just these ridiculous 20-hour shifts and things like that for his family, and I remember being sad, not because he had to work so much, as in like all hard work, but like you're working for your family, but you can't see them. Mm-hmm. You know? And it's one thing to like work on a farm and work all day, but back in the day when you worked on a farm and you worked all day, once your son became of age, you worked together. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it's still hard work, but at least it's your farm, and it's your kid, and then you know you're gonna pass the farm off to your kid when you go off to the. But you know, so here my point in saying all of that is to say, I was extremely critical of the guy yesterday, Jurek, whatever his name is, and rightly so, because this guy is trying to romanticize the gulags and all the rest of it, which is ridiculous.
I still can't stop thinking about the things.
Infuriatingly, and that what I read to you was nothing compared to what Solzhenitsyn describes.
Oh my gosh.
So from that, but then you think to yourself, where does this type of hatred come from? Because they basically got all the rich people and tortured them to death and did all horrible things to rich people, and it comes from this type of things where this type of anger kind of seethes, you know, underneath, and you had sort of this revolt, you know, which is something that could never happen in America, because, you know. This is what people like neo-communists don't understand about America, is that America has a template of communism to look at and say, we're never going to let that happen. The communists, the bourgeoisie in Russia never had a template of a communist takeover. So they couldn't see it happening. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But then what's amazing is, so here's Ecclesiastes 4. Now listen to this. Then I looked again at all the acts of oppression which were being done under the sun, and behold, I saw the tears of the oppressed, and that they had no one to comfort them. And on the side of their oppressors was power, but they had no one to comfort them. So I congratulated the dead who are already dead more than the living who are still living. But better off than both of them is the one who has never existed. Ask me about that later, because that's very interesting. Better off than both of them is one who has never existed, who has never seen the evil activity that is done under the sun. I have seen that every labor and every skill which is done is the result of rivalry between a man and his neighbor. I'm going to say that again. I have seen that every labor and every skill which is done is a result of rivalry between a man and his neighbor. This too is vanity and striving after the wind. Oh. The fool folds his hand and consumes his own flesh. One handful of rest is better than 2 fistfuls of labor, striving after the wind. So, then I looked again at the vanity of the sun. There was a certain man without a dependent, having neither a son nor a brother. Yet there was no end to all his labor. Indeed, his eyes were not satisfied with riches, and he never asked. And for whom am I laboring and depriving myself of pleasure? This too is vanity, and it is a grievous task. So the initial line says that the oppressed and the oppressor are both suffering. And you go, oh, that doesn't make that. I can understand how the oppressed laborer is suffering. But the guy's also saying that the rich, powerful person is also suffering, and there's nobody to comfort either one of them.
$1 more.
And, well, then you think about Jeff Bezos, and the guy is obsessed, and he's about to be a trillionaire, and he cannot stop. And he's losing, I'm not going to get into his personal life, but he's losing people, and he can't stop. And he can't stop. And that is a form of suffering. Now, the downtrodden worker's like, oh yeah, it must suck to be you, Bezos. But, I mean, look, man, there's nothing more miserable than being a quadrillionaire and still realizing that you're not happy.
Well, I think that when you're not in that situation, it's easy to look at that situation and say, well, I would be happy. I don't need $1 more. I mean, all I need is 10,000 more I'm making now, or, that would just ease everything right up. But the saying is true, the more you make, the more you spend. And so, people land, you make a raise, and then you're like, wow, I'm still basically in the same place I was before.
Well, economically speaking, poor people actually spend money, and rich people invest money. Rich people are more likely to save and invest money than poor people. So it's this very strange thing where a poor person believes, oh, they've got this car and da-da-da-da-da. And the reality is that the rich person, that crazy car is like 0.5% of their income, whereas the car that you spent is 28% of your income. You actually spend more than the rich person does.
But you had no choice.
No.
If you wanted to get to if you wanted a reliable vehicle.
Yes and no.
I mean,
but the people that consider themselves poor are not really poor. That's my contention, especially in America.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. But at the same time, it's like the guy that worked those crazy hours at Walmart, he wasn't poor, but I would definitely count him among the oppressed. And I'm sure if he looked at his pocketbook, he could simplify his life. But you get used to a certain type of standard of living, and your wife does, and your kids do, and then you become enslaved to that. So it's like, it's crazy because people are looking at that guy. People overseas are like, I work 20 hours a day too, but this guy's living like his kids are living like, I'm working all day for a bowl of rice, man. So it's a. That's why that's one of the things I told the boys in our man study. I said, look, guys, I can give you all these apologetic reasons for why I believe the Bible and Christianity and yada, yada, yada. But I said, I've never seen a more accurate diagnosis of the human condition. Because what we just read explains the last 200 years of world history. And it explains what's happening in our country right now. People can't see it. Because we are simultaneously the downtrodden and the oppressive rich in America. I think we're probably the only time in human history where that's been true. But if you only have lived in America, there are people in America that legitimately believe that they're poor.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, I can't tell you how many people, like, felt sorry for us when we were in a homeless shelter. And, and people will literally say, come on, Ben, you were poor. No, we were not. I've seen poor people. Poor is when you wouldn't flush your toilet water because it's got water to drink. That's poor. You flush your water. You flush your toilet with water that people there's people killing right now for a glass of that. That's poor. You're not poor here. Oh, you're on food stamps. You're not poor. I've been on all of those. So I'm not speaking from any sort of place of privilege at all. We were in a homeless shelter, but we were not poor. We weren't, because we lived in a very rich country. And so we had places to sleep and eat, and if,
I think too,
we depended on the charity of others, but we were not poor. Go ahead.
I think sometimes, like, if you have no place to go, you know what I mean? Like, that also kind of dictates whether you're, like, literally poor. For instance, if like in America, if you're really doing bad, you can go to a shelter. You can go to the local church and get a meal, and you know what I mean. There's ways that you can offset that feeling. And I mean, we've worked with, lots of different people in lots of different, economic situations, and seen their plights.
This is how rich. This is how rich Americans are. We just got done working with street people who preferred panhandling to getting a real job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying this as a stereotype. I'm saying this as there are human beings that I know that I can list right now. They were in Burger King making, whatever, and they chose to panhandle because the panhandling is more amenable to the lifestyle that they want.
Yeah.
And in America, you have that option. Mm-hmm. But that's what I'm trying to explain to people. Like you don't understand poverty. Like I've seen poor people.
Right. When somebody works all day for a bowl of rice, or I don't know the exact numbers. You know what I mean? If somebody's working an extended amount of time for very, very, very little, like in America, nobody would stand for that. Nobody would work all day for literally one bowl of rice when we can get it down there at the shelter.
It's illegal. We've got minimum wage.
Well, yes, but not if you're from another country.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Like, I'm with you. Is that this is what I'm saying? Like, Americans really truly do not understand what poverty is. Mm-hmm. They'll say that you need to have a living wage, as if you have minimum wage, you're going to die. Mm-hmm. That's not true. If you want to see the face of starvation, you want to see the face of actual poverty, go check out that Yemen thing. That little girl in Yemen. That's what it looks like to have actual poverty. So, but at the same time, I understand some of this stuff is subjective. All suffering is subjective, right? You go to the doctor's office, you say rate your pain 1 to 10.
Yeah.
So all suffering is subjective. But what I'm saying is I can see all the different versions of it. Rich people absolutely suffer. Mm-hmm. The hoarding is a form of suffering. The paranoia that people are out to get you. Some of these guys can't walk down the street. That's a form of suffering. Mm-hmm. The addiction to making money. We're talking like the drug dealers. And they were talking about like they were selling drugs, but their drug was selling drugs. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't get out even though they had, Vlad TV. These guys are millionaires. They made millions in the 80s. They were 20 years old with $10 million. Could not stop. Ended up in jail for 20 years. They knew the feds were tracking them. Couldn't stop.
Right.
So everybody is under some form of oppression or not.
You sacrifice so much joy when you hoard everything for yourself.
It's true. It's true.
We literally had the best Christmas this year because of all the people that we were able to help because of our patrons.
Yeah.
No joke. It was the best. And I was so happy. This is my second year in a row not getting the Christmas blues after Christmas. And that was a major part of that, was being able to, help other people and give more to other people than we gave to our own family and our own children. Our children were fine. They had things.
Which, I'm not a very big giveaway presents at Christmas anyway. Mm-hmm. Birthday, fine, but if Christmas is supposedly Jesus' birthday, how the hell do you make out with all the presents on? So I put the kibosh on that years ago. Mm-hmm. So my kids were already preconditioned to it. I think one of I agree with you about this year. One of the things that's different is that usually most of the people that we've supported historically are people that we don't see and that we don't know because they're all over the world or whatever. But now I think because being an internet personality, you talk to so many people that now there's almost like a boom. There's an immediate, and we were able to do something pretty special. Pretty special over Christmas for a particular family, and it's still reverberating to this day. I'll give you an update.
Yeah, I'd like that.
So yeah, and the crazy thing about the way to escape all of this, really, the feeling of oppression or the being a rich oppressor or being a poor oppressed person, is not to take all the rich people and send them to the gulags.
No.
The solution is to say, Okay, this guy has a Kit Kat factory. I have a Kit Kat bar. Okay? And instead of being so resentful of this guy with his Kit Kat factory, I'm going to take the little or nothing that I have and give it to somebody else. Because I saw that in the homeless shelter. I saw people that were homeless just like us. And people would share. Now, we also saw absolute selfishness too. That's the thing that people don't realize. Poor people can be selfish as hell, let me tell you. We also saw that when we were working with our street folk.
We did.
We saw people that were completely generous and gave the last cigarette that they had to their buddy.
Yeah.
Because the guy was trying to quit drinking.
I know.
Remember? He was trying to quit drinking.
I do.
So they were like, here, take my last cigarette. And say what you want about smoking, but that to me was like, that was like one of the craziest moments of our entire interaction with those folks. And we're Christian. We shouldn't be smoking. But like being willing to do that for a person. And I don't know what it's like to be a smoker, but I imagine like your last cigarette, man. Your last cigarette for the whole night. These people had nothing. They were sleeping in a tent city that got raided by the cops. They were literally on the ground in tents and like, this guy was trying to quit because he was trying to follow Jesus. He was trying to stop being an alcoholic and all this. And so he was, and they're like, hey man, have my last cigarette. Yada, yada, yada. And like, that's the way to really overcome poverty is to become a generous person.
Well, I think that that's what helps. Like when you think of, the rich person that's talking about how the rich person, where's that part where it says,
he had no one to comfort him.
Yeah, because... What was the reason? Because
he's working.
Yeah.
And he never thinks to himself, for whom am I laboring and depriving myself of this pleasure?
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's true. Like, where's that money going to go? Like, he's not doing it for himself.
Yeah.
When you think about people that have, like, a bunch of money, if they take that and they, like, help other people, and I'm not talking about, like, if somebody donates, like, a $10,000 to something, but they're, like, a billionaire, then it's not like somebody who makes $50,000 a year, giving, you know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of like when you actually make a sacrifice when you give, it's like, I don't know, it's such a good feeling. And I think that that's part of the thing. Like when a rich person kind of gets to this point where it's like they don't, is this all there is? You know what I mean? So they're saying $1 more.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's like when you take your money and you do something amazing with it, then you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Hold on.
Well, ultimately, what all of us want is meaning and purpose.
Right.
And you cannot buy meaning and purpose with another dollar.
Right.
And so, when you are able, we had this discussion in the Bible Boogie, like, can you do anything without a selfish motive? And so we talked about a good selfish person and a bad selfish person. So a good selfish person is a person whose joy is located in the joy of others. And a bad selfish person is a person whose joy is located in the joy at the expense of others.
Me.
Right? And so,
for me.
So,
yeah.
So when we did that for that person, there was absolutely self-interest. We were happy, and who doesn't want to be happy? Except for my Buddhist friends. Who doesn't want to be happy, right? So you want to be happy. So that's a form of self-interest. But we call people good who can find their happiness in the happiness of other people. And so, by God's grace, there was a line from C.S. Lewis that hit me in Mere Christianity where he basically said, you're not really giving, basically, until you can't go to the movies because you've given that week. And so, we accomplished that at Christmas by God's grace. But, and it was crazy because the kids got a present, that wasn't material, right? And that's the crazy thing that God kind of does, and He kind of rewards people for. So they got a present that was, because they had a bunch of presents last year, but they were not happy. And then they didn't get a bunch of presents this year, but they were very happy. It was a really good experience for them. And then us at the same time, being able to be part of that moment, being the people that God used to do that for that person. It was one of the best Christmases, and like you said, we didn't have the Christmas blues because there was just a full heartedness about it. And so I just think the salient resentment that is building for the rich in America, I think is dangerous, and I think it's misguided, and I think it also lacks the awareness.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It lacks the awareness that if you had all that money, like, what would you be like? You know, would you really give a giant percentage of what are you doing now?
Right. That's like I said in the Middle America. There's 350 million of us.
Yeah.
Everybody gives $1 or $2.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd solve world hunger. So, but everybody wants to put it on the rich guy. Sorry, you and the rich guy are just as sinful.
And a lot of times people will be like, well, I was gonna give to that whatever, but I wasn't sure if the money really goes to the kids.
There's always an excuse.
You know,
let me tell you something.
You buy things all the time, and you don't worry about where where that money's going, or where it's.
I'll tell you this. I don't know how much money is going to the kids to that Yemen thing or whatever, but I'll tell you this: if you don't send anything, 100% of it is not going to them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So I think the only way to escape this stuff is to be the type of person that's going to give out your last cigarette. Like, that's why that moment was so impactful to me, because that's the essence of freedom from this.
Yep.
From the treadmill that we're on. In our current seats and lanes.
And the feeling of meaningless, you know, because there's, you know, the Bible says that God is love, and so, you know, there's I read this quote one time that basically said every act of kindness that's done in the spirit of love, like, God is right there, you know. So when you involve yourself in the things that God is doing, like, there's something different about that. There's a full sort of feeling.
Yeah, and you know, in Ecclesiastes, it's meaningless labor, you know, and that's what this guy's talking about. You've got to find a strategy to put meaning around your labor, so that. And the whole concept of Ecclesiastes is living under the sun, which is basically living in such a way as if God didn't exist.
Yep. Yeah.
And so that's what it means to live under the sun. So go for it, man. That's a tough way to live, bro.
Remember Jesus talked about, like, when you're gonna do some kind of a feast, basically invite the people who aren't gonna be able to pay you back.
Right.
And I think that if you kind of take that concept into what we're talking about here, where, you know, if you buy a gift for your family members or, you know, your own kids, like, that makes sense, you know, and they're going to pay you back in the sense that these people are going to love you back.
Right.
But if you give to a stranger, or you give to somebody who's not expecting anything from you or doesn't really know you on that level, like, it's totally different. I don't know. Like, obviously getting gifts for your family and for your friends is fun, but it's way more fun doing it for other people that you, like, literally are going to gain nothing from it. You gain so much. Like, you're not doing it on purpose to gain anything, but you do.
There you are, dear listener. What do you get this out?
It was very sludgy. It was very, like, the sludginess fit the lyrics, I felt like. I think they communicated what they're trying to communicate. It's not my thing, Zonia, you were right. But actually, I'm not going to give it such a horrible score, because I feel like that they did well on what they were doing. I'm just not, like, into so much of, like, sludginess. So I'm gonna go with I'll go with an 8.3.
I don't like sludge metal either, but I don't think you're supposed to like it per se. But the sludginess reflected the inevitability of what they were trying to communicate. They were trying to communicate this sort of oppressive life that you're never going to escape from other than when you die. And so from that perspective, I go, okay, well, you know, and so that one, I'm going to give it a 9.2.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Happy birthday, Zonia.
Happy birthday, Z. Love
How old are you now?
Z, and just, she'll never say this to anybody, but Z is one of those people.
Oh.
Z is one of those people. You know, she's Silicon Valley, but she's extremely generous and extremely. She's the head of our
generosity, whatever you want to call it.
Generosity the sharing, whatever you want to call it, wing of our organization.
Whatever the thing is, it should have something to do with joy.
Yeah,
like
something. I'll find some Latin or
something.
Arabic. Abshuru. Our Abshuru department. Abshuru means be happy. It's a command. So she, again, she's never going to say that, but that's Z. Mm-hmm. So anyway, just really, really fitting, considering everything that's going on in the world and all.
Yeah.
So. Then out.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, we love you, Sonia. What's it? It's not that. It's not like that. No. All the people in the know. Tell the truth.
Oh, like
then out.
Sorry, out.
Down.